And here at Rockway, we get to spend a bit of time talking about our big questions. And one of the questions that comes up a fair bit is, why are we here? Or what's the point of it all anyways? And whether we realize it or not, we're actually being told constantly, sometimes with words, but almost always with really powerful images, why we're here. And it comes down really to one thing. It comes down to individual happiness. We're here to be happy. And we're also told where that happiness comes from. Can anyone guess? Any guesses where we're told happiness comes from in the images and words that we see almost every day? Any guesses out there?
Money.
Money, yeah. When connected to that, what do we do with our money?
Buy stuff.
Buy stuff. Okay, happiness comes from money and buying stuff. Okay? And unfortunately, the list of things that we need to buy is pretty long. It includes cars and toys and makeup and electronics and clothes and jewelry and music and sports equipment and exotic trips and on and on and on and on. And it also includes the way we need to look, and quite frankly, for someone like myself, that's almost hopeless. The idea that buying things will make us happy has a name. Does anyone know what that word is? All right, it's called consumerism. It means things get consumed or used up. What's getting used up here? The world, our earth, exactly. It's called consumerism, and the pressure it places on you and me and the people on our planet and the planet itself is unrelenting. And interestingly enough, in the midst of this comes a very, very different voice.
Let me tell you why you're here. You're here to be salt season that brings out the God flavors of this earth. Here's another way to put it. You're here to be light, bringing out the God colors in the world. If I make you light bearers, you don't think I'm going to hide you under a bucket, do you? I'm putting you on a light stand. Shine. Keep open house. Be generous with your lives. By opening up to others, you'll prompt people to open up with God, this generous Father in heaven.
Okay, who can guess whose voice that is? Yeah, in the middle? Yeah, the guy back there. Jesus. Exactly. So not actually Jesus in this case. That was just slightly clever. I knew that was going to happen. But Jesus' words nonetheless. And Jesus' words give us clues or point to a different answer to that question of why we're here. Jesus says we're here to bring out the God flavors in the world, or to be a light. So why would I listen to that voice? Why would anyone listen to that voice? Because for some of us, that voice seems to come from a dusty old book called the Bible. And sometimes we say, that book is boring, or even irrelevant. In some ways, the answer to that question, why we would listen to that voice instead of the other voice that says, buy things. In some ways, the answer to that question is, in some ways, a lifelong mystery that can only be experienced to be really understood. But we can say more than that, too. And we can do more than that. This day here at Rockway at Junior Youth Breakaway is all about that. First of all, some of us, the clever ones, and I know there's some clever ones out there, have already begun to suspect that the words and images of consumerism really don't give us what they promise. Many of us already know, if we haven't already said so, that buying things and having things doesn't really make us happy, at least not in any lasting kind of a way. And some of us have actually figured out that the opposite is true. That being focused on things and money in the hopes of finding happiness can bring deep unhappiness and a very, very deep emptiness. But when we listen to Jesus' voice, we begin to hear and discover something completely different from that emptiness and that unhappiness. We hear Jesus' voice calling us to be generous to those around us. And in doing so, we experience the wide and deep generosity of God. Jesus' answer to that question, who am I, is that, really, I am a much-loved child of God. It allows me to start to look for and see my unique gifts. It lets me see the gifts of my brothers and sisters around the world and frees me from that prison of finding my identity, saying who I am in terms of what I buy or what I have or what I look like. And Jesus' answer makes it possible for me and you to make a difference in my world. In other words, we begin to discover that Jesus' voice and words and wisdom is deeply connected to God's wisdom of who we are and who we're meant to be. And you know, this actually makes sense to me when I start to think about it, because it strikes me that the creator of the universe might actually know a little bit about this. I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you a story about one of my students. Her name is Emily Brubaker-Zerum. We call her Emily Beasy. And she chose to make a difference in the world. And she wrote about it. You can read it. I'm going to read it to you. And it starts off with the voice of one of her friends saying to her, "Emily, have you gotten your banquet dress yet? Is your hair appointment booked? And what about your manicure? My nails are a mess. The banquet is a month away." Emily goes on to say, "Each December, Rockway Mennonite Collegiate has a Christmas banquet. Girls love getting beautiful new dresses for the occasion. Of course they do. What's not good about a dress? It's not uncommon to spend $200 or more, no joke. In mid-October, my mom, Emily's mom, and she had an interesting conversation. Why not do something different this year, like wearing a dress out of your closet, or maybe borrowing one, or maybe going to the thrift store," she asked. "I'll make a donation of $125 to an organization of your choice instead of buying you a new dress." Well, Em needed to think about this. It was a difficult decision because she loves having something new each year. A couple of days later, Emily says, "I happened to hear about a program called Shine a Light, and its purpose was to increase the availability of education for girls in refugee camps in Kenya. Em learned that girls often miss school and have to discontinue their studies because they're required to help with household chores. Usually they only find time to study after dark because the camps lack electricity and studying at night is difficult. Shine a Light campaign raises money for solar lamps so that girls can study at night. $10 buys one lamp." Em says, "This campaign captured my imagination. How can there be peace in the world when some are suffering and stuck in camps with little opportunity to better their lives? I realized my new dress alone could buy 12 lamps. I went back to my mom and said, 'You've got a deal. I'll give up the new dress if you donate $125 to Shine a Light.' And then, ding, you know when those light bulbs come up in someone's head in a comic, a light went on for me. Perhaps other girls at Rockway would be willing to wear something borrowed or used or from the thrift store. Together, we could buy a lot of lamps. It's not about asking people to come up with more money, I thought, but rather asking people to spend their money differently. I tested my idea with my teacher, and she thought it was a wonderful initiative that could raise awareness and promote education. So this past November, Rockway girls, grades 9 through 12, gathered for assembly. Em was nervous. She says, "I worried that girls would not be keen on my idea or capture my passion. I invited Sado, a recently sponsored Somalian refugee, to come to the assembly and share her personal story of trying to get an education in a camp." And then Em gave a speech. She says, "I stress that few girls in camps can pursue an education beyond primary school," and she told the story. And she said, "By providing them with light, we can provide them with hope. We provide them with a chance to stay in school. With an education, they have choices, and they can learn about their rights, and they can support others and then help others. They can live up to their potential and get the chance they deserve." And said, "One night of sacrifice for us could help change the lives of many like Sado." And she was nervous, but she asked the girls at Rockway to join her. Em says, "I'm excited to report the initiative was a success. Rockway girls had their eyes opened, and together we raised enough for 175 lamps. And Em says, "This action changed me. I consume," there's that word again, I use up, "more than other girls in other parts of the world. I have more clothes than I need and more possessions. I could feel guilty about this, but that actually doesn't help. However, I can be generous and work for change from my point of privilege. As I heard about the girls in the refugee camps, I discovered a passion. I cared about their lives, and despite my fears of causing a controversy at school, I knew I wanted to convince others to join me. I learned that education can't be taken for granted, and that it's a gift. I learned the power of getting others involved in my idea, in peace initiatives. My $125 would have helped, she knew, but $1,750 does so much more. Em's idea is just one of many hundreds, thousands of ideas that are out there. So maybe every one of you sitting here needs to start wondering what God might be calling you to do. And one of the things a favorite author of mine, Shane Claiborne, says, whatever it is that you think of doing, don't do it alone. Once Em had her idea, she got help, and then she got others on board. And as we said, Em said, my $125 was good, but $1,750 is even better. I'm just going to demonstrate with that for a minute. I need one kind of brave volunteer, not too brave, but brave enough. Okay, can you stand up? All right, you can stay right there. I'm going to ask the question, and you're just going to read the answer, then I'm going to ask the second question, and you're going to read the answer. It's just going to be in your ordinary voice, okay? All right, why are we here?
We're here to be a light.
Good. And how can we be a light?
By making a difference.
All right, that's not bad. Now get your youth group to stand up with you. Awesome. Okay. We're going to do that again. I'm going to read the black, and you as a group now are going to read the answer. So, why are we here?
We're here to be a light.
How can we be a light?
By making a difference.
Okay, now you guys get the rest of this gang to join you. Stand up. Get them. Come on. All right, we're going to try this again. Ready? Why are we here?
We're here to be a light.
How can we be a light?
By making a difference.
One more time. Why are we here?
We're here to be a light.
How can we be a light?
By making a difference.
Okay, you get the idea. You can sit back down. At some point, your youth leaders are, we're going to do an activity here, but we're a little bit short of time, but there's going to be an activity for you to do with your youth group in which you brainstorm with your leaders how you can make a difference, okay? And your youth leaders are going to have a picture of this lantern, and there's places to record your ideas. You might think about what you can do in your neighborhood for MCC, for seniors, for homeless, for the people of Haiti, for the people of Pakistan, for the environment, for your local big brothers or sisters, for your community center or a downtown school. Think big or think small, but use your imaginations. One final note I have for you is don't do it without prayer. Ask God for guidance as a group. When you fill out your sheets, take them back to your church and ask your congregations to pray for you. And as I end here, I want to pray for each one of you. And so I ask you to just quiet yourselves for a moment. You're already quite quiet, and I appreciate that. And just join me in prayer. God of great wisdom, generosity, and love, I ask for your blessing on these youth and their leaders. Thank you for their boundless energy, imagination, and potential. Let them see clearly that they are your children, unique and deeply, deeply loved by you. Give them a faith that's open to hearing your voice, so that they may be empowered to make a difference, to be a light and a blessing to their world.